I just wanted to talk to you about how we mentioned the kind of mental aspect and the kind of social aspect previously, but I just wanted to know more about that from like a coach teaching kids. So you told me about how you've got your summer camps coming up at the moment, and we've had the pandemic where kids haven't been able to go to school or they've been self-isolated because the kids got it, or all of this kind of nonsense that's happened over the last 14, 15 months or so. So I just wanted to kind of know how beneficial it has been for you as a coach to kind of coach these kids back out in the open, back out in the grass or the astroturf, and they're kind of socializing with friends, meeting new people, seeing some of their old people, but kind of learning in a different environment as well. Because, like you
Yeah,
mentioned before, when you're having fun, you don't really think of it as learning. But if you're implementing football as well as keep teaching drills, but the kids are laughing and screaming and having the time of their lives, they're not thinking of it as an education. They're thinking of it as fun, relaxing games, all of that. So I just kind of want to know how has that kind of changed for yourself, really, from before the pandemic and like during and kind of now in the pandemic as well. Like how it's kind of worked for the kids and
yeah,
how it's kind of worked for you as well.
yeah. I mean, great question. A big thing for me within all of what you've just said there is the topic of life skills. So, you know, obviously we've just had this pandemic. We've had people locked inside, kids locked inside. But the huge challenge as well for coaches, teachers, parents is that we're in this technology age. When I was a kid, I was born in 1996. So as I was coming through, teenage years, childhood years, you've got the PlayStation 2, the PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, Xbox, all that. Suddenly kids are spending more time inside. I can remember when I was like 16, I don't think I ever went anywhere. I was obsessed with Assassin's Creed. It's all I ever used to play. And, when you think about the COVID pandemic where people have literally been stuck indoors, you suddenly are becoming, used to that. You're suddenly becoming quite a lazy person where you're getting up and you're just used to watching TV or playing on your Xbox or, watching something on your laptop or staring at your screen all day. Suddenly you are becoming quite of a homebody.
And that was like with me
And
as
going back to my
well. I
point of
was
life
on,
skills.
sorry to interrupt, but for me, I was on
Well,
5 months of
no,
furlough as well. So it's kind of like you know what you can do, but sometimes doing the same thing over and over again is repetitive, is
yeah,
boring, and it was just nice in that last part of the lockdown. So lockdown free from January, I had the podcast to kind of work on, and I things to kind of do and get up in
yeah,
the morning as opposed to because I didn't really want to exercise because they closed our local park for like football and basketball and stuff. So like you couldn't go into that
yeah,
kind of area. So you're just there like, oh,
yeah.
I'm not going to go for a run. I'll go for walks, but not for runs because it's kind of dull in that time of the year as well. But sorry, continue what you were saying about the change.
No, yeah, you're absolutely right. And I think about myself. This time now for the last 3 months, I've been trying to get on the bike every day and do some exercise. And I think back and go, why didn't I do any of that when I actually had time to do it before I was doing all these projects now? And you did right because we were getting up and we didn't want to do any of that. And the impact for kids and young kids is massive because they've not been going out, they've not been having that social interaction, they've not been learning life skills. So learning how to talk to people, gaining confidence through playing sport or gaining confidence through doing whatever, thinking about school when you're being asked to do a presentation. These are all key life skills that as you get older you need them in your everyday life and your job. Me now, I get asked to talk on podcasts, for example. I wouldn't have been able to do that at 16 because all I ever did was play my PlayStation. I didn't have that skill, and I had to develop that later on in life. And the huge thing with playing sport that probably people don't realize as much is, yeah, it's great that we're getting them out and exercising. That obviously that's a massive part of playing sport and attending camps, attending coaching sessions. But the other part that people probably aren't aware of as much is it's developing those life skills. So when you do a nice trick in football, you gain confidence from that. That's an important skill in life. Confidence is great for people. We know about mental health these days, for example. So if you feel confident, generally attack the day, as Gary Neville says. A good thing that we do, for example, is we get the captains, we try and encourage leadership skills. We try and get the captains to lead the team talks,
Yeah.
sometimes lead one or two of the sessions. And again, that's trying to encourage them or teach them life skills so that when they go to work in 2 or 3 years' time and they're being asked to do a presentation in front of a group of people, no problem. And that's the huge element as well now of going back to sport. Children are being subjected to this, social skills, communication. If you're playing in a football team, You're learning how to talk against people. You know, my brother's 16, locked inside. You know, when he first come out in March, he couldn't talk to anyone. You know, we were getting reports from teachers that he was dead quiet. Then we've took him to Ilkley with us, got him involved in the coaching. Now suddenly he's talking all the time, and that is huge for him. Because in 2 years, he's going to be off to university. You know, he might have to have he wants to do history, so he might have to have an interview to get into a university to study history.
Yeah.
3 months ago, he wouldn't have been able to do that.
Because that was like with me as well. Because when you're literally in that situation as well, like with me, I was kind of working on the podcast. I was interviewing different people left, right. I was having the guys on for a conversation. It was perfectly fine. But when I noticed from when I used to play Friday Night Football, like 6, 7 of the guys afterwards, when I came back to play football back in April, when everything was opened up, they were like, Hamza, you're a lot more vocal now. You're a lot more of a leader now on this pitch. You're talking a lot more. And I'm like, am I? I feel like it's just me being me. But I think people just noticed me more because I was being a bit more. I think I've explained it previously that we've taken our Friday Night Football a lot more serious over the summer because we've missed out on 4 or 5 months or so. But having that kind of confidence again to kind of go out, see your mates, have a bit of a laugh and joke about it after the game, not kind of during the game because you want to focus on winning and focus on doing well.
Sure. Yeah.
With kids at that age as well, like the fact that they had couple of months off because they couldn't go into school or they're doing school from home, and literally like you and I on the laptop now. Imagine if this was like just them and like a single parent, or if this was just them and then they couldn't see anyone else for the rest of the week as well, and even come on the weekend they couldn't really see anyone because no one was rather confident besides playing on like Xbox or other games on the iPads or whatever it is. The fact that you're actually out seeing people, you're away from these devices, you're away from being distracted by different people, it's given for me, it's given a bit of it sounds cliche, but it gives me a bit more faith in humanity, that the fact that a lot of people are going into this kind of depth with kids so early. Like you mentioned with mental health, we're a mental health podcast, so we always talk about mental health all the time. But we like for us, the 6 of us, we don't really understand the mental health of kids. We would understand the mental health from our side as kind of adults now in the situation, but from a kid's perspective as well, we wouldn't really class mental health as a thing that they would they would really need help with. But the fact that you mentioned it already, the fact that we've kind of discussed it and we've kind of tiptoed around that topic as well, how has that mental health kind of helped kids, not just with the social aspects, but with little things like feeling good about themselves physically as well? Because again, we wouldn't really know what that's like currently at the moment as well. But it's just a little fact that they scored a really good goal, they're happy. The coaches are encouraging them like to tackle more, or because obviously the whole 2 meter distance, but they're getting a bit more comfortable kind of playing football again. Was that something you noticed as well, that they were a bit shy coming back in after COVID, or were they just like that? They were just up
Yeah, for sure. I mean, mental health's an interesting one because obviously when you get to a certain age, you know, I never really understood mental health until I got to like 21, and then suddenly I understand that, oh, I've gone through this. Actually, I was going through depression there. You know, I was feeling really low. When you're a kid, you don't know that because obviously you don't have the experience. So when you're feeling really down, you don't know that you actually might be going through depression.
Yeah.
So, you know, generally it's quite a difficult thing to look at a kid and go, oh, they're struggling with mental health. You know, you can sometimes recognize it in adults a bit more. There's obviously signs and stuff. But with a kid, it's generally quite difficult because they've probably never been through it before. So maybe you're seeing how they act the first time. But for sure, like, you know, when we were back at coaching and even in the summer after the first lockdown, you know, when I've worked with, you know, with kids, I work with adults. The first sessions, it's all a bit weird and no one really knows how to talk and it's dead quiet and people are shy and don't feel confident and maybe don't really want to take hold of the ball. They try and pass it straight away. And certainly, you know, I mean, I've not even really thought about it, but as I was just listening to you there, when I think back to, you know, people I've coached recently, and when you see them now from coming back after lockdown, massive. You know, for example, we've got a lass called Chloe playing for Ilkley. She's been given captaincy a few times.
Yeah.
And just her progression, it's just gone from there to there. She's suddenly a great communicator, great leader, incredibly confident in herself. And that is just massive. From when you're seeing her when she first comes, she's just shot up through that, just through playing sport. And again, and this is maybe what people don't realise as much, particularly with kids, you're not always chucking them into sport to get them to lose weight or to get them to move and get off the iPad. But at the same time, it is that life skill development. You know, if I don't get out of the house in 2 or 3 days and speak to someone different, I go mental. I have to talk to people because otherwise I just feel like, oh, God, what's that? I'm just stuck in a rut. What am I doing? And sometimes that's probably underestimated. You know, oh, he's on his Xbox or she's on, you know, Nintendo or whatever, or they're entertaining themselves. Yeah, but how do you know they're all right? You know what I mean? You have got to gill them out, and just because the huge difference, like I say, with some kids I've worked with, when you see them from then to now, it's huge. Suddenly they can talk. They're talking all the time. They've almost made new mates. They're incredibly confident in themselves. They feel happy and look happier. Maybe they were happy when they first come, but you know, and I think that's maybe what as coaches we've just got to be aware of. It's difficult to kind of see the signs of that. You know, obviously there's you know loads of other stuff regarding safeguarding, but mental health I think is, from my experience, and you know other people might say differently, but I think it's quite a hard thing to look for in kids.
Yeah.
And you maybe don't, you'd have no idea unless someone's maybe disclosed to you that they're struggling. So from that impact from playing sport, I think it's hugely important.
Yeah, I would say so as well. I was just gonna use my usual line of brilliant, but it's not brilliant how we just talked about it. It's brilliant just to hear your point of view about it as well. The fact that it's something that coaches nowadays are looking for in kids. They may not find it straight away, but it's the fact that it's always on their mind as well, which is great.